Welcome to the Left Hash Call. My name is Seth Howard. I'm a former Division III football player as well as a former Division III coach. And one thing I have learned over the years is that the stories behind the athletes and coaches are anything but small. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of shows and podcasts that cover the NFL, big time college football, the NBA, you name it. But there are very few that cover the Division III, Division II, and FCS levels. Those other shows out there that do cover those levels, I want to say thank you for what you do. However, more coverage is always needed. This show is about giving a voice to the people who make the game what it is. The ones who don't always get the spotlight but are out there grinding every single day. Coaches, players, staff, the people behind the scenes you might not know about, but you absolutely should. Football is going to be at the heart of it, especially at the Division II, Division III, and FCS levels. But we're not boxing this thing into one sport or just one level. If it's raw, if it's real, if it's worth talking about, we're going to talk about it. As of the 2024 season, there are 134 NCAA Division I Football Bowl Subdivision or FBS programs. In NCAA Division III, there are 240. I believe that Division III is the purest form of athletics. The players are not doing it for NIL opportunities or to go to the NFL. They are doing it because they love it. Because of that, they're willing to pay to do it. And on the other side, the coaches are incredibly innovative at all levels. One thing that nobody seems to understand is how every college sporting event in America, it takes a village to pull off. I'm not just talking about the coaches and the players. Of course, they're important, but I'm talking about strength coaches. I'm talking about athletic trainers, events and operations staff, SIDs and media staff, and countless of volunteers. And I intend to tell their stories too. Let me tell you my story and explain my journey to give you some perspective. Welcome to the Left Hash Call. I started my college football journey like so many do, not knowing anything. Going through the recruiting process is very difficult and confusing for a 17-year-old because everybody's experiences are so different. And unless you have a sibling or a parent that's gone through it or is currently going through it, you are probably a lot like I was. I was told that the best way to get recruited was to go all these camps in the summer, which I did. I went to every single camp in the area and sometimes going to the same camp multiple days in a row. I had a very fixed mindset at the time. I thought I was going D1 and that was it. I didn't care about any of the other levels. Like so many do, when a D3 school would come around, I'd blow them off and not put any thought into it. Turns out the big Division I FBS schools were not very interested in a 6 foot, 180-pound quarterback. And now there are exceptions, but it just doesn't really fit their mold. I wasted a lot of time thinking I was going to go play Division I. After my senior year of football, none of those Division I opportunities came, of course. But the thing was, I still wanted to play. There were 3 schools that came to my high school to visit me, and I was very interested in. One of those was Drake University, a Division I FCS non-scholarship program here in Des Moines. One was Iowa Western, a junior college, and Simpson College, a Division III school. And at the time, I didn't understand the difference between any of these 3 schools. The only thing I did know is that I was going to have to pay for all 3, and the one I was going to have to find a new school after 2 years. And let me preface, all 3 schools are phenomenal. And I considered all 3. But depending on what you're looking for in a school, all 3 are very different. And for me, what each school was offering was very different. Iowa Western was a 2-and-done program. So I was going to go there for 2 years and then go find another school and potentially going to be one of those higher levels. And I wasn't really interested in just going somewhere for 2 years and then going somewhere else. I really wanted to go to a school for 4 years. So then it was down to Drake and Simpson. And both schools I was very interested in. And they seemed to be very interested in me. The only thing was, Drake wanted me to play defense. I was a quarterback, and being a quarterback, that's really what I wanted to do. Simpson was going to give me that opportunity to play quarterback. So I decided to jump on the Storm train. I don't want to bore you with a big, long story about my playing career, but here are the cliff notes. My playing career at Simpson was not all that spectacular as a player. I spent 2 years as a backup, and then COVID came around and ended my junior year. And then my senior year was cut short due to a season-ending injury. Let me say this. Even after all of that, I enjoyed every second of my college football playing experience at Simpson, and I wouldn't change a thing. I had 2 years of eligibility left. And the problem with Simpson was they didn't have any graduate programs. And so I set out to find a new school. So I graduated from Simpson, started writing emails to schools that A, were potentially in need of a quarterback, and B, had a master's program of some kind. I knew business was probably what I wanted to get my master's in. And so that was kind of the searching grounds for a new school. And so I did what everybody, all the cool kids do nowadays and hopped in the transfer portal. There were multiple schools that I was interested in. Sent a bunch of emails, Twitter DMs, you name it. But only one called me back at the end of the day. And that was Matt Walker at the University of Wisconsin River Falls. Went up there, fell in love with the place, and loved the people up there as well right away. Anytime someone goes into the transfer portal, you always think about the green grass on the other side. And in most ways, the grass was incredibly green. But long story short, I didn't end up playing all that much. And I ended up playing behind one of the best players I had honestly ever been around. I didn't know it at the time when I was playing, but then when I came out as a coach, I understood why. Yet after that year of being the backup again, I still had 1 year left. I still had the medical hardship left. And I wanted to continue to play, but I was like, I don't really want to be on the bench anymore. And I was tired of not playing. And so I hopped in the transfer portal again and started reaching out to coaches again and started not hearing anything back again. And there was just a moment when I really realized that I had grown to love River Falls and I had grown to love the people that were there. And I had made some really incredible friends while I was up there. So I decided to stay. But as luck would have it, during spring ball of that next year, I tore my Achilles and that would end my playing career for good. But as one door closes, another one opens. And I got the opportunity to be essentially a graduate assistant at River Falls. Went into the office that a couple days after I had had surgery, and Coach Walker asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I think I'd like to try out this coaching thing. And so I jumped on staff as a graduate assistant and helped with the quarterbacks and really fell in love with coaching that year. I really loved that staff and I loved being a part of that staff. And we had a great year that year. After that season, it was time to graduate. I was getting my master's and I wanted to start looking for jobs. And I wanted to get paid doing it too and being a college football coach. And really, I started my recruiting journey all over again. And it's kind of full circle because I knew as much as I knew then as I did as a player, and that was nothing. I didn't know anything about college coaching. I didn't know what staffs look like and how they set them up and what's full-time and what's restricted earnings, what's part-time and what's a GA. I didn't know any of that. All I knew is I was coaching the quarterbacks at River Falls, and that's all I knew. Like a lot of people do, I started going to the football scoop and started looking for jobs. And, I just remember being really discouraged because I remember seeing all these jobs on this website that everybody told me to look at, but like anything, it's so much more about who you know. And because of that, I wasn't getting any responses because none of these people knew me because of this profession being all about who you know. The tight ends coach at Simpson, who just so happened to be one of my best friends, was on that new staff at Simpson. The old one had turned over and since left since I was there, and there was a new one. And he asked if I was interested in a entry-level restricted earnings receivers coach job. And again, didn't know what a restricted earnings coach job was, but I knew that there was going to be some earnings. I didn't know what, but it was going to be restricted. And so I'll get into, exactly what some of those things look like. down the line in a different episode, but I knew that Simpson wasn't in a good place when I left it. Obviously, the staff had turned over, but after, and I wasn't necessarily going to be felt like I was going to be interested in going to Simpson, but I felt like sitting down, doing an interview was going to be good for my professional development. And I also wanted to hear kind of what Simpson College was up to and how the football program looked. And so I sat down with the head coach over there. And after listening to Coach Hoskins, the head coach over there, hopefully eventually we can get him on the show. But after listening to him and his vision and where the program was going, I really felt like it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And so I accepted that position there. Didn't make a ton of money, but I really enjoyed my experience there at Simpson and met a lot of really cool people and learned even more about what coaching looked like. I think I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I wanted to own my own business specifically. And while I was a college football coach and I was trying to make this climb, and there was just a moment where I felt like I would rather go my own way and own my own business and do my own thing and give up coaching. So after 2 years of coaching, I decided to hang it up and start Sizzle Media, a media production company. Most of these bigger entities, whether that's a Division I school or a large corporation, they have armies that are dedicated to telling their stories. But those smaller schools, they can't afford that. And the small businesses, they can't afford that either. And that's really the goal of Sizzle Media, this media production company that I've started. And now that's the point of this show. Good, bad, or ugly, I want these players and these coaches and these staffs to have a platform to have their voices heard. And now let me back up for a second. There was a very critical part of my Simpson journey that would really impact my life more than I thought it would. During my time at Simpson, I was always doing something with video, whether it was for the athletics department, doing highlight videos of the basketball teams or tennis teams, whatever, or doing something for my journalism degree. I typically had a camera in my hand. For my project, for my senior capstone, I decided to produce a documentary about the women's basketball team there. Because not only were they a great team, they also had a great player who had an incredible story. Her name is Jenna Taylor. Most saw the awards, like being back-to-back player of the year and leading their team to 2 conference championships. But unless you were directly tied to Simpson or tied to the team or tied to Jenna, you probably wouldn't know all of the struggles that she went through before being nationally recognized in the Division III world. You can watch the full documentary on my YouTube channel, but to give you a quick recap, during Jenna's junior year, she suffered a back injury that would ultimately end her season. And during that same season, she lost her dad after a battle with pancreatic cancer. And then on top of all of that, COVID was right around the corner and shut down the school and sent everybody home. After all of that hardship, after all that grief, she worked so hard and led her team to back-to-back conference championships and was back-to-back player of the year, back-to-back academic All-American, you name it. That was an incredible story to tell. And I loved bringing that story to life and telling that story and bringing awareness to their team because it was an amazing team. And behind that team had some really incredible stories, including Jenna's story. I knew then that telling the stories of those in Division III athletics and other, smaller divisions was going to be something in my future because I know that there's other Jenna Taylors out there whose stories are not getting covered. And I think that's a shame. And that's really the point of this show. Right now, we are in a time where Division I FBS college football dominates the college football media and really the college media in general. The livelihood of everyone else depends on the big dogs at times. And with the rise of NIL and the transfer portal and the super conferences and the possibility of these D1 FBS schools splitting from the NCAA scares me. And so I feel like I have an obligation to protect and promote the purest form of athletics. To button up this show, I want to say thank you in advance for your support, of the show, of these athletes, of these coaches. I hope that you'll follow along and hopefully listen and laugh and maybe learn something new. And if nothing else, I just hope the show provides you with some sort of entertainment in your daily life. This has been the Left Hash Call. We'll see you next time. Peace.